Yo, what's going on? We got Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns coming up tomorrow night. Really good matchup. Tyron Woodley obviously had a little bit of a layoff. He had that fight against Usman where he really didn't perform up to his capabilities. He was, said that he had some kind of outer body experience, that he didn't feel like it was him in there. And, I think a lot of fighters can relate to that. Sometimes it's just the mental game is so important. And if you're not 100% in there, leading up or going into the fight, then sometimes that could affect your performance and your effort and your energy output. And I think, with Tyrone, like we've seen him in many different fights where he had, more aggressive performances, and then, there were some fights that he kind of held back and, he would kind of wait on the cage, on that outer layer of the cage and kind of circle and wait for that powerful overhand right, but not really committing too much to anything else. He did have the good performance against Darren Till where he finished Till, but that was on the ground, kind of exposed Till a little bit there on his ground game. But Gilbert Burns has been hot lately. He just finished Damian Maya, which, not a lot of people could say that they've done that. That's a hard guy to finish. And, he caught him with that beautiful check left hook counter shot in that last fight. And he's also a guy, that has fought in multiple weight classes, 155, 170. He's bounced around. He's a big guy. I think he gets into even up to like 200, which Woodley's pretty big too. I think he gets up there. So these are two powerful guys, and I give this the edge to Burns, obviously in the grappling realm of things and the jiu-jitsu. But we haven't seen Tyrone Woodley submitted. He has really good jiu-jitsu himself. He's not a guy that's going to go out there looking for like pretty, wild submissions or anything like that. But if he does take you down, because he has the wrestling to do so, he's good with positions, staying smart, staying on top, maybe forcing half guard, just kind of light you up with some ground and pound and kind of take his time there. Gilbert Burns more of a versatile grappler where he's going to look for to take your back and look for submissions and different kind of stuff down there that Woodley's not necessarily known to look for. So it'd be really interesting to see the fight go to the ground, to see if Burns could kind of take advantage of something down there, or if maybe Woodley's a little bit too smart and too experienced to get caught down there in something. I don't really see that happening. I feel like Woodley's a very explosive guy. I don't really see Burns trying to like enforce wrestling too much. He seems very comfortable on the feet. He won his last fight by, dropping Damian Maya and finishing up with ground and pound blows. So, he's definitely hurt a lot of guys on the feet. So I think he believes in his power, and I think the fight's going to primarily take place on the feet. Both of these guys are in much different positions in their career. Woodley's that veteran, that guy that has held the title once before, and he's got that big name, and he's had his downfalls, but Gilbert Burns is on the rise right now, and he's looking to kind of steal that position and become a world champion. And Tyrone Woodley is the guy to beat, to kind of put yourself in that position like you're the next guy. And a lot of interesting things happening at 170 with a lot of you got Leon Edwards waiting in the wings. You got the Masvidal Usman fight that might happen, might not happen. Who's next for Usman? Colby Covington. Are they going to do the rematch? So there's a lot of moving factors in that division. But this is still such a pivotal fight for those guys. If Woodley knocks out Gilbert Burns, he can get his rematch with Usman. You never know if they move that direction. And if Gilbert Burns could finish a guy like Woodley, a former world champ who was, one of the best welterweights in the world, that's a huge statement, and he could possibly skip the line ahead of, guys like Leon Edwards and Colby Covington and stuff like that. Gilbert doesn't have the biggest name in the division, so I don't know if they would necessarily do that, but with a huge performance, a finish of Tyron Woodley, you never know. But yeah, so ultimately, my guess is that the fight's going to take place on the feet. I think Woodley's going to have an edge on power. And, you see that he has a chip on his shoulder lately where he's kind of like, he's that old Woodley with that fire burning inside of him, it seems like. And I think that's great for this fight. I think he's going to need that to compete with these guys, these hungry guys coming up. So I'm really interested to see the Woodley that comes Saturday night, tomorrow night. Is it going to be the Woodley of old where he's kind of going for it, throwing those big overhand rights and really trying to take guys out? And he's precise with it too. He doesn't just wing punches to wing punches. Like, he times that overhand right when you're coming in, and he drops guys bad. So, you know, my opinion is that we're gonna see a better Woodley this time around. I think he really is upset about that Usman fight, and how, he didn't actually get a chance to be himself in there and show himself. And I think sometimes that haunts guys, and it gives them that fire to come back and show that they're still a killer. So I think we're gonna see Woodley go in there and try to really put it on Burns. And I think because of the fact that Burns is not necessarily a guy who forces the wrestling and the takedowns all the time, it could be to his detriment, to not put a guy like Woodley back against the cage and try to level change and really make him work on that wrestling and that cardio. If Gilbert doesn't do that, and he kind of stands on the outside and tries to play that striking game, I could see Woodley pouncing on him and landing a big overhand or a big hook. Let's not forget also, Woodley has great leg kicks. Both of these guys have really good leg kicks, but I just give the power edge to Woodley in this fight, and I just think he's gonna come back with a vengeance after that last fight with Usman. I think he's got that chip on his shoulder. You could see it. He looks like he's been training, really hard. He's been waiting for a fight. He's been chirping, trying to get a fight ready for like months now. So I'm leaning towards Woodley, and I think he's gonna get the job done by TKO, either first or second round. But yeah, so I'll get on some Twitter questions too. I see we got some in here as well, and then maybe I'll make some quick picks for the rest of the card. Rockstar Z, I'm always curious to know what the fighters think about the smaller cage size. Seems to force more action and make it harder for evasive fighters to circle out. Well, that could be the case, but I don't think the cage is that much smaller where, like, if you're a guy that likes to move, you're going to be affected that much. I mean, it could do little things. It could make a slight difference for someone like a Dominic Cruz, who really uses, like, a backwards, forward, side-to-side motions where it's, like, big advancements in their jumping and their side-to-side lateral movement. It could be a little bit of an effect on that, but I don't think it's much. Maybe for the guys who do like to fight in the pocket, it could help them, kind of cut off the cage a little bit and get closer to their opponent, if that's what they like to do. But I don't see a huge factor. I mean, what's the dimensions? I'm not really quite sure the difference, but I think it's like a 30-foot cage versus a 25-foot. So it's really like 5 feet circumference of like enclosure. I don't think that's that much to affect the fight by a lot, but we'll see. We'll see in these fights if it maybe plays a big role. Not a Boomachino, but, a Starbucksachino here. Sergey Gazelle, how safe did you feel fighting during the pandemic? Well, you know what? Fighting's not really safe. So, it is what it is, man. With the pandemic, I'm kind of over this shit. I'm taking safety precautions. I'm putting my trust in the UFC. I know that they're doing a great job at keeping things as safe as possible. They're following the protocol. They're testing us twice throughout the week, for the virus, and they're making sure everything's secluded, masks on, stay away from people, isolate yourself in the rooms. They got isolated workout rooms for each individual fighter. So they're doing the best they can. I felt fine in Florida, and I'm sure I'm going to feel just as fine in Vegas coming up here. Man, I got to say, I slept on you against Azor, but you were losing for 1.5 rounds. What changed on that counter? Well, nothing changed, man. To you, I was losing for 1.5 rounds, and maybe I was by punch count, but to me, the fight is not just round by round. It's a whole fight. It's taking your time, being patient, weathering the storm, being a veteran in there, seeing things, understanding that the guy is using energy in a different way. He's fading. I'm kind of getting better and better and better, and I see he let everything out in the first round. He's kind of tapering down. So that's how that second round started happening. I see the energy shift. I start picking my shots, seeing things more close, getting closer in range where I'm more aggressive and landing shots, and I see his energy level starting to go down and down and down, and then boom, I start picking my shots, and I knew that counters were going to be there in that fight. This guy's a guy who, throws one-off kicks, leaves his hands down. He also throws a lot of hooks, and I was blocking a lot of those shots in the first round. They sound worse than they are. They were hitting my arms a lot. A couple body shots landed, but a lot of them were blocked. Really only got hit clean like 2 or 3 times in the first round. And, I landed a couple of shots on my own, maybe a little bit less, but the second round I started opening up, feeling myself, and I get better as the fight goes on. Just win, baby. What was it like fighting Montel? How would you rate his skills? I think he has the ability to touch gold. Montel's a great fighter, but I'll be honest with you, I can't really tell you how it was like for me because that wasn't me in there. Just like Woodley says, something happened with his, showing up in that fight against Usman. I can be honest with you 100%. I've had many fights. I knew way before going into that fight that I wasn't right up here, and this up here is the most important thing. And now I have that down pat. I have the ingredients that I need to go into these fights as a killer at my best potential, the best Brian Boom Keller. So, nothing against Montel, but I know that was true for me going in there. I'd love to get that one back, but he looks good. He looks good. He's a big, tall guy for the weight class. He's getting confident in his striking. He has that wrestling background. I would say jiu-jitsu is probably his weakness, although he submitted me. But I could talk more about that. But let's just say I didn't show up there. Who do you got to win tomorrow? I've got Burns, Sakai, Shevchenko to win in a treble. Yeah, I mean I got Woodley. I would go with Sakai, and I would lean towards Caitlin Chikagian by decision. I think she has that veteran savvy about how to outpoint girls on the feet, and she got good striking, and she's good at jiu-jitsu too. I know Shevchenko kind of took advantage of her on the ground, but Shevchenko's sister is not. Valentina is different than the other Shevchenko, but yeah. Lucifer, Donk City, what are your thoughts on a fighter union, pros and cons? How does one get started? I think McGregor's so powerful, he could talk his fellow fighters into striking for a few weeks. Otherwise, I don't know. Well, that's the thing, man. You need someone of like very high power. Probably every single superstar in the sport needs to get together and go on strike for some kind of union to start or something to change, because fighters are a dime a dozen. The UFC is going to keep moving on no matter what happens. Conor McGregor, whether he leaves or not, the UFC is going to keep on keeping on. So we're going to need something crazy to really change and for a union to start. Of course, I'm all for it because I'm all for the fighters, because I am a fighter. Put the hard work in my whole life to get here, put my life on the line just like every other fighter, and it'd be nice if we had financial security for the future. But who knows when that will be implemented. What's your favorite part about the fight game? Winning, and training. I love training. I've reignited myself. I feel reinvigorated in the gym. I feel that passion. I'm eager to learn again. I'm so happy to be in the gym getting better every day, and to get in there and fight and perform is just the best part, is the fighting, and getting better and feeling that feeling of victory is just unexplainable. If you beat Cody, or when you beat Cody, you think you're one more away from a title shot. Hey, I would say 1 or 2, man. I'm not looking too far ahead, though. Cody's tough guy, number 12, focused on this guy, but I believe I could beat him, and that's all that matters. You go in there and fight your best, and you could beat anybody, and that's what I believe. And yes, I put a good performance on this, and that's 3 in a row this year. And, I'm looking to see who's available next in the top 5, and you never know. One more win after this, and I'm right there. With Henry vacating the title and things up in the air and a lot of moving pieces. If you're one of those guys that finishes fights like me, you make a big statement, and sometimes you skip the line. So I'm not counting that out for sure. Let's look at the rest of the fights down this card. Trying to bring up the card here, see who else is who else we got, baby. June 13th. Why is it not loading? Full card. Oh, that's why. Um, so I already went over Woodley Burns. You know, I got Woodley. TKO. Augusto Sakai versus Blagoy Ivanov. You know what, man? That's an even fight. They're both minus 110. I would stay away from betting on that fight. It's a hard fight to pick. But you know what, man? Ivanov's toughness is just so hard to deal with. You know, that fight with Derek Lewis could have went either way. Yeah, maybe Sakai's a little bit quicker, a little faster. I would lean towards Sakai, like I was saying before. That's a tough fight to pick. I would stay away from that one. I would say, honestly, like with the Woodley fight, I'm picking Woodley, but I think there's value on Burns at plus 155. Billy Quarantino versus Spike Carlisle. Spike Carlisle, what a weird fella, huh? He's an interesting character. This is at a catch weight at 150. You know, I'm going to lean towards Spike Carlisle. I think he's a live dog, too, because he had an interesting style when I was watching his last fight. He hit that nice head kick, but he does have a strong, solid build for the 145-pound weight class. Even though this is at a catch weight, he's a pretty big guy. I know that's why this was at a catch weight, so he might have a size and strength advantage. I'm going to go with Spike Carlisle for the upset here at plus 120. Roosevelt Roberts versus Brock Weaver. I'm going with Roosevelt Roberts. I think he's going to get the job done. Probably decision because Brock Weaver is really hard to finish. Mackenzie Dern, Hannah Cyphers. I'll go with Mackenzie Dern by submission. Antonino Shevchenko, Caitlin Chikazian. I think Caitlin's a live dog in this too. I'd wonder what the prop bet is for decision, but I'm going to go with Chikazian by decision. Daniel Rodriguez, Gabriel Green. Gabriel Green taking his fight on real short notice. Daniel Rodriguez had that really nice performance over Tim Means, which he's a beast in there. I love watching Tim Means fight. So that win was beautiful. I'm going with Daniel Rodriguez by knockout. Jamahal Hill versus Clydson Abreu. Don't know much about these guys, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Jamahal Hill's the favorite, so I'm going to go with the favorite by decision. Tim Elliott versus Brandon Royval. This is definitely fight of the night right here with these two flyweights. Are reckless in there, very fast-paced, all over the place. I trained with Brandon Royval when I went out to Colorado, and that guy was one of the most scrambly, fast-paced guys I've ever trained with on the ground. It was so hard to deal with that guy. He's all over the place. He's a high-level grappler, and he's also not afraid to get in there and strike and exchange. And Tim Elliott took some damage in that last fight, so, we never know how he's feeling off of that. He said he didn't even remember this last 2 rounds. He was, out of it. So, that was against a top guy. So Tim Elliott has a lot more experience. He's fought for a title. He's been in the UFC for quite some time. But, man, I think Royval's going to get the upset here. I think he's young, hungry, and I think he's not afraid to get in there and get after it right away, and that might be trouble for Tim Elliott. So, definitely some value on Royval, plus 150. I'm going to go at Brandon Royval. It's hard to pronounce his last name. Royval for decision. Casey Kenny, Louis Smolka. Like watching Louis Smolka fight. Casey Kenny, he's had some bad losses. Merab dominated the shit out of him, but who doesn't Merab do that to? Fucking taking you down over and over and over, making you drown. Casey Kenny has, impressive striking. He's a well-rounded guy. I think he's going to be a little bit stronger than Louis Smolka, but both of these guys have fought at flyweight, now at bantamweight. Minus 260 for Casey Kenny. Definitely value on Louis Smolka at plus 210. That's a big line. I wouldn't expect it to be that big, to be honest. Louis Smolka definitely has abilities to submit. He's constantly hunting for submissions. Never stops. So what he does is he lets guys gas out trying to beat the shit out of him, and then he's throwing up some crazy submissions and crazy scrambles on the ground. He gets you in these weird positions. So, I don't know if he'll be able to submit a guy like Casey Kenny. He seems to have good enough wrestling and smart, ability to dictate where the fight is. I give the edge to Casey Kenny on the feet, although Louis Smolka is coming off that knockout, right, over Ryan McDonald. So that was impressive. But I got to lean Casey Kenny. I think he'll get it done by decision. I think he'll outpoint him on the feet. We got Chris Gutierrez versus Vince Morales. I believe it says bantamweight, but I think they're fighting at featherweight. Chris Gutierrez, he always looked like a pretty big bantamweight to me. Vince Morales, not so much. So I think Chris Gutierrez has the size advantage, a little bit of reach advantage possibly Also trains out of Factory X with Brandon Royval. I'm going to lean towards Gutierrez by decision. I think this fight's going to be one of those fights. Also could be fight of the night. Back and forth striking. I know Vince Morales is a guy that gets in there and gets in the pocket and exchanges. He gets reckless. He's not afraid to take one to give one. So it's definitely going to be a gritty fight. But I give the edge to Gutierrez off of just, fight IQ in there. Just, being able to outpoint him, land those low leg kicks. Has a little bit more power, I feel. And Vince Morales gets a little reckless, so he might get caught in there just trying to throw. So I lean Gutierrez decision. So yeah, that's it for Woodley versus Burns. We'll definitely. I don't know if I'm actually gonna break down my card. I'm fighting next week on June 6th. So tune in, ESPN baby. Let's get it done. Let's break into the top 10, and we'll see you guys. Boom.